Hi, this is Sarah with House Copper Cookware. I'm recording a video today that just kind of gives the overall explanation of how a piece of cookware goes from idea to reality and to the stores and then your home. There seems to be this idea when I'm talking to people that I can just whip something up, or any company for that matter can just whip something up based on an idea a customer has. And while that usually does start the process of an idea to fruition, it's not as easy as that. It takes like almost a year usually to have even one product developed. And a lot of it depends on the capital that you have and how much money you have to invest up front in that particular product. So I'm going to kind of give a overview of how a piece of copper cookware starts, and from there you can see why things cost what they do, and the craftsmanship that goes into it. So for me, what it usually happens is I do some research, and I pull out books that are published anywhere from 50 to 100 plus years ago that explain how coppersmiths and tinsmiths used to manufacture wares by hand. They were all done using stakes and hammers and pliers originally. Then they moved on in the very late 1700s, and with the first patent in, I believe, 1804 for the hand crank tools that tinsmiths and coppersmiths could use to expedite the manufacturing process, even though it was still by hand. And from there, the places like the Dover Stamping Company in the mid 1800s started to stamp or mass produce certain pieces of the cookware, which then the coppersmiths and tinsmiths could assemble. In the meantime, they were still using stakes, hammers, pliers, and hand crank machines, turning machines. Those kind of dictated the shapes that you could do. So even though you could manufacture and create anything by hand that was custom made, which we still can do today using the same hand tools, and which I do in the shop myself, it still, was hand, it was hand done, and it still required a lot of know-how, and made certain shapes easier and cheaper to make, especially in mass. So those are the designs that I research and look for. What did American coppersmiths used to make here before we started to manufacture everything over in Asia, and still some places do in Europe? Once I find a design that I know is authentic American, it was made by smiths here in America during that time period, then I essentially sketch it out on a napkin. And the napkin becomes something I hand off to my friend who is a product designer for large companies, and she puts it into CAD design. The CAD design then goes off to the, I use 3D printing. And if I say, okay, this was what a handle traditionally looked like, it usually was made out of wrought iron on a piece of copper cookware skillet. Then that goes and becomes a plastic prototype, which then gets sent off to the foundry. The foundry takes a look at it. It's a family owned and operated, so I work directly with the owner, and he and his small team, it's his daughter and his son-in-law, they look at it and go, yeah, absolutely, we can pour it, it won't break off, it's sturdy enough. And then from there they create a match plate, which is a big aluminum plate that fits on their processing machines that allows for repetitive iron pouring. We use ductile iron so that it bends. They heat treat it for me so that it's not so brittle and it doesn't crack when we drill it in the shop. The body itself looks like this. This is a 12-inch skillet. You can see how thick it is. That is the thickness of the copper that we use, 3 millimeters thick, or 090. And we have this prototype sent to the spinners. They take a look at it. They tell us if they have any concerns. Some of this was, this radii here, but we were able to produce it. And then they take steel and we discuss how we can build a tool from scratch, and they form a steel mandrel that goes on their CNC machine to my specifications, and they hand roll it up. They hand operate the CNC machines and roll up pieces of copper to my specs. Those two pieces come to the shop here in Wisconsin in my garage. From there, I take the handles, I grind them, I sand them, I throw them in a little mini arburator, which is full of usually walnut shells or plastic bits, and I get them softer. Sometimes I take sandpaper by hand, I make them all smooth, and a little Dremel, and then I drill the holes into the handles. The body gets marked and drilled as well on a drill press using fixtures that we have, and then we take the copper rivets, we fit them through, and we use a rivet gun. We can't use a really high amount of air pressure, but we hand rivet these in all the way through, and then we lime it up, put some lime, like garden lime, and water, and we put it on the outside, and we hand wipe the tin interior over a fire where the tin is melted. Then we clean it up on the buffing wheel. By we, I mean me, a little bit of my husband, and the master coppersmith that I have an apprenticeship with. He manufactures things by hand using the old tools, but he's also able to help me with these bigger, more mass-produced masterpieces. And from there, it's cleaned up and it's food safe, and it's good to go for like everyday use for the next 15 years until you wear the tin off, and then the tin just gets reapplied, and you're good to go. And that process is good for thousands of years. But that's why it takes a while. It takes almost a year for just that product to come into being. And so when people come up with ideas for manufacturers, do it, because we might jump on it and say that's a great idea. Let's see if it's even possible to do. And once we go through all the steps, sometimes we're able to come up with a product. So that's how we do it. That's how Copper Cookware comes into being in a nutshell. And feel free to reach out. Let me know if there's pieces of copperware you'd like to see made, and maybe that'll be the next project for the next year. Take care.